why give away something that everybody is looking for? Everyone's looking for these assets at this point in time. So Avidian has made the decision that we are going to finance high tide ourselves and capture the value, because the next $2 or $3 million that goes into these projects are going to move the needle big time.
Welcome viewers tuning into Assay TV. We're going to be speaking with Steve Roebuck today, who is the CEO of Avidian Gold. Avidian Gold is a junior mining company focused on exploring, developing and acquiring world-class mineral deposits in North America. Steve, welcome.
Well, thank you very much for having me, Adam, and hello to everybody in Assay TV land.
Yes, thank you. Steve, it's great to be talking with you. Could we start with an overview of the company, just because Avidian's got a really interesting structure and some great assets. If you could give us a snapshot of how the company's structured, that'd be great.
Sure. The Avidian is focused largely on gold exploration and project development in the United States. We've got 3 projects in Alaska and 1 in Nevada. But interestingly enough, we also we're entrepreneurial and we're opportunistic, and our private company called High Tide Resources is well positioned with iron ore and battery metals projects in Labrador and Quebec. So it's a fairly unique structure, having almost 2 teams, 2 companies under one roof. So the Avidian umbrella includes a diverse project portfolio, but very much North American focused. And yeah, it's we can get into that detail.
Yeah, certainly, it's a great proposition to be diversified. But let's hone in on perhaps your 2 core projects first under Avidian. So you have 3 assets in Alaska you're mentioning. Could you give us an update on what some of the activity that's gone on there recently?
So in Alaska, there are we've got 2 projects that we're going to focus in on for exploration purposes this year. One is called Amanita, and it's located 5 kilometers south of the Fort Knox mine, and that's owned by Kinross Gold. So Kinross has been, over the last half a year, making investments and bringing in, trucking in ore from here and there around the state. So it really puts quite 2 of our projects in play as a potential, extra mill feed. But that's kind of more of a longer term strategy. What we want to do this year at Amanita is follow up on our drilling from last year, in which we got some very good drill results. So we're looking at coming in this year and doing some RC drilling, short holes, near surface, high grade oxide gold mineralization. When I say high grade, it's all relative. 3 to 4 grams per ton, but when you look at the mill feed that actually goes in at Fort Knox, you're sub 1 gram. So 3 to 4 grams does look quite good. But that's the plan, is really to follow up on the results from 2020 and see if we can start developing a resource at Amanita. But at the Golden Zone project, which is located about 200 kilometers to the south and halfway between Anchorage and Fairbanks. And very important to note that all of the Alaskan projects are located road accessible, and that is a difference maker in Alaska. There's a lot of good projects in the state, but some are stranded assets. This is not our case. But at the Golden Zone, it's a district scale, 125 square kilometer footprint, 19 kilometers of mineralized trend. There's a 300,000 ounce deposit called the Breccia Pipe. We look to drill and expand that resource, and that's an opportunity to quickly drive some big value in, bring that asset or that resource from 3 to 4 to 500,000. I don't think that's your 1 million ounce deposit by being a Breccia Pipe. It's fairly well constrained by its own geometry, but there are expansion possibilities. But really, if you just step away only 5 kilometers to the south, and again, trail accessible, there's an area called the Copper King area. And the gold and copper mineralization there is substantial. We're, trenching from 2018, 2019. We are seeing 9 meters of, 10 gram gold, 2-3% copper. These are things that certainly need a lot of follow-up. So again, that's an area, that's where we can really, that's a bit more greenfield, but this is where there's a real home run possibility. So gold expansion at Breccia Pipe, but gold copper mineral exploration around the Copper King prospect. So that's kind of the plan for Avidian in Alaska. And we have just announced a financing that would help with the raising funds. We're looking to raise approximately $6 million Canadian, which, throw in the currency exchange, maybe about $5 million in the US. So we're going to be deploying roughly half of the raise towards the Alaskan exploration, and the other half, which can be a combination of hard dollars, and we've just announced a flow-through financing to fund our Canadian assets. And those are underneath the High Tide umbrella, which are our Labrador West iron ore project and our Lac Pegma battery minerals project. So let's maybe take a closer look at those.
Certainly, yeah. Let's come on to those. But just on the financing, you're raising this as a private placement for the
non-brokered private placement. Absolutely.
Yeah, excellent. Okay, it's great. So yeah, that's Alaska. Just while we're on that, obviously a great mining jurisdiction.
Yes.
And your drilling program is going to ramp up now, presumably with the spring campaign. So in terms of sort of key milestones for that, we're looking at some good news flow throughout this summer period.
Absolutely, we're bringing in an RC rig. It arrives. There may be one available July the 1st, but the one that we have currently booked comes in around August the 1st. So that's when the program really starts to ramp up in Alaska, is August. We take advantage of the summertime activity there. Being road accessible, we can drill year round at all of our projects in Alaska, but ideally it just makes more sense to operate in the summer. So absolutely, there'll be great news flow coming out of Alaska.
Fantastic. Okay, so yeah, as you mentioned, High Tide, really interesting proposition as well. Let's focus in on that. So it's iron ore, and looking at some of the other sort of transitional or battery industrial metals as well, which is very exciting to add that to diversify the portfolio. And you mentioned you've got the flow through financing secured for that. So tell us a bit more.
Well, we're just actually, we just kicked off the raise yesterday, and yesterday was, 20 phone calls, and today is going to be likely the same thing. So I'm just kind of squeezing this interview in between calls, which is, it's an exciting time to be here. So it's a great opportunity for High Tide and for Avidian Gold's current shareholders and future shareholders, who people who want to participate in this raise. The opportunity to find these two projects that are in very high demand at this point in time. The iron ore project is actually I'm not going to call it a mature project because it still doesn't have a resource on it, but that's what we want to do. This was one of Rio Tinto's #1 exploration projects that they, I don't know, for loss of better expression, gave up on at the lows of the market. And they put $5 million worth of exploration into it. They drilled 18 drill holes, 4,200 meters. The opportunity came up in 2019 for me to take a look at this project, and I ended up doing a deal with the guys at Altius. And they are familiar with the iron ore and the camp. So we ended up doing a transaction. So a little bit, foresight on maybe on my behalf. I could see that there was something transitioning in iron ore. And the same thing in the battery metals project. This was actually a project that I worked on in 1996. I was a young project geologist at the time. I went into the bush in middle of January, or the end of January 1996. I didn't come out until the spring. Those were the days that you actually spent 12 weeks at a time in the field. And drilled the discovery hole on this magmatic sulfide copper nickel cobalt deposit. So I've been sitting watching idly this project for the last 25 years, and it really just didn't move. The company that had it in 1996 kind of gave up on it as well. And funny enough, they ended up in Indonesia. And we kind of know what happened in the late 90s in Indonesia. Something called BRICS came along. So all of a sudden, bang, everyone's blown up. This project falls off the board, and it was largely ignored for the next 25 years. And here I am, in 2021 coming along, and I scooped up the project, and all of a sudden, I basically dragged these two dead bodies out of the snowbank in terms of things. I couldn't give away iron ore and battery metals and copper and nickel cobalt 2 years ago, but holy smokes, we had the opportunity. We could have taken this public. We were thinking about an IPO. The terms of the IPO were not favorable. We said, why give away something that everybody is looking for? Everyone's looking for these assets at this point in time. So Avidian has made the decision that we are going to finance high tide ourselves and capture the value, because the next $2 or $3 million that goes into these projects are going to move the needle big time. We're capturing that value. Our shareholders capture that value, and not the flow through funds and those that type of thing. That there's some funds that are better than other, but typically they'll come in and exit within 4 months and a day, and off they go. So what we're looking to do is try to put together a financing that has got a lot of smaller players, people who are more engaged, who are longer term, that are people who want exposure to these metals. So you can get, by participating either in the hard dollar or the flow through dollar, you can get exposure to gold in Alaska and Nevada, but this year it's really about Alaska, and then the battery metals in Quebec and in Labrador, and the iron ore. So it's an interesting mix, and the longer term goal is to drive way more value into high tide, and then at some point in time, then go public with a much higher valuation, with a much stronger hand than we are currently having. We don't have a resource. We didn't have a PEA. We didn't have a ton of network. These are all things that we're going to accomplish this year. So we're looking at drilling roughly about 6 to 8 holes, maybe about 2,500 meters, and using last year's drilling. I drilled 4 holes, 1,000 meters, and the historical 18 holes, 4,200 meters. By combining historic, recent, and this year's work, we can put together a resource of 500 to about 600 million tons in the inferred category, and then just do the network, do the PEA, and then next thing you know, we've got a project that is not worth $7 million. We're moving it up in a fast manner. So these are all goals that we are going to accomplish this year. And I mentioned at the beginning, there is a separate board of directors for high tide, separate consultants, separate team involved in that than Avidian. So it's not a distraction. It actually is something that is going to add value to the mothership, to Avidian, and to our current and future shareholders. So yeah, obviously you can hear by my voice, I'm pretty excited about the opportunity to be involved in both companies, and to have such quality assets and quality people around the team on the board, and as consultants that we work with. Yeah,
certainly. That's an excellent rundown of. I can hear the excitement in your voice as you say, and this private structure, as you say, gives you that agility, I think, in terms of developing that resource with a separate team, separate board. All quite advantageous until you want to eventually take it private. And if we look at the market's certainly looking very strong for iron ore and nickel, copper deposits. And I think one of the other attributes that you could perhaps shed some more light on is that you've got these potential resources in North American mining friendly jurisdictions. If we look at the global picture right now, and North America, Canada, and US retaining or ramping up their control of the supply chain of these critical metals, it puts you in a great position to be bringing these online in these jurisdictions.
Yeah, when you look at the the investor attractive scales that you see out there, I'm just thinking right now is that I think Nevada is number 1, Alaska is number 4, Quebec is number 6, and Newfoundland's number 8. So if that's something that you care about, and a lot of investors do care about, that where they're going to invest, that the rule of law exists, and that there will not be state-owned enterprises or the state itself getting involved and taking away the assets, that obviously is not going to happen. Rule of law here. And you look at in Quebec, especially on the battery metals project, they are so bullish on the low carbon economy. They've got so much. Same with Labrador, abundant hydroelectric power. So what can you do with power? And to that extent, you can start to think about the creation of hydrogen. Then can you go from the creation of hydrogen to looking at how do you create a green steel of sorts that you can actually replace the carbon component with a hydrogen? Obviously, the Swedes are going down that road right now. This is a direction that Quebec is looking at. Obviously, they are very supportive in that whole aspect, and the fact that our battery metals project, the project literally is transected by a Hydro-Quebec power line. I mean, how fortuitous is that? You've got, number one, you've got access down the power line that is reasonable access that you can get down there with your drills and stuff if you want to drag it overland. But once you get there, let's just go to the next step. What can you do? How, if you want to develop a project, let's say the exploration and all the initial studies work out, and you've got actually something that you can sink your teeth into. You can also, you've got access to, abundant low-cost hydroelectric power. You can actually power your mining equipment electrically. There's a number of things that you can do. So this is going to be a nice fit, I think. I'm speaking to parties associated with the government in Quebec right now, and seeing what, this is a first look for them at these projects, and seeing, or this project in particular, see how it fits. So that would be an interesting development there. And in Labrador too, there's again, they've got abundant hydroelectric power, and this makes for a development of a project in Labrador. You've got rails, rail support, you got a workforce, you got water, you've got again, low cost hydroelectric power. These are the best places that you can actually develop projects in this one. It's called the Southern Labrador Trough. It incorporates 4 operating mines right now, between Rio Tinto, Tacora, ArcelorMittal, and then of course Champion. Everyone knows Champion, and the wonderful story that has been developing with Champion. And Champion recently bought the Kami deposit, and that now removes the only undeveloped iron ore project that's in the hands of anybody other than the government. So we, with our Lab West project, we are in a very, very good position to start to really capture people's attention and development opportunities. And yeah, it's a good position to be in. So that's why we wanted to keep high tide and fund it ourselves and really drive value into it.
Yeah, certainly you touched on some great points there, and some key points around, ESG conscious investors as well.
Absolutely.
The sustainability and decarbonization and the cleaner energy sources is a great attribute to those projects.
You're right. And some people think that's we're big mining companies, and you know what? I think I've seen things where the Church of England is, involved in their investment portfolio and the way that they look at companies, and that is something that spreads across the world. People are looking and holding companies responsible, and that's a good thing. It's never too early to start taking start going in the right direction and start doing the right steps. And we're not going to try to greenwash our projects. We're going to, number one, they're going to stand on their own as projects. And if we can start to maneuver them into that position where they can, benefit from the access to the infrastructure, and you're exactly right. The lower carbon footprint is critical. And this is something that we really want to explore and look at, is that how do we, working in 2021, 22, this is almost an expectation. You need to do this. You need to be thinking along those things, along those lines. And really, the next step after this, the next logical step is seeing, who are our partners and who would be aligned. And we want to be aligned with people who have that same mentality, that want to do it the right way the first time through, as opposed to using 1950s and 1960s technology. No, let's not do that. Let's start thinking, where are we going and how do we position ourselves? And when you listen to Friedland talk about blockchain and the different dollar value attached to, a dirty copper con as opposed to a clean copper con, this is where blockchain is going to recognize that. And this is a potential for us down the road, is that when you look at what we can do at LAC Pegma, because of the access to the low, to the hydroelectric power and maybe electric fleet, this maybe results in a premium for a product that comes from a project like that.
Yeah,
anyways, I'm waving on that one, but I like the way people are thinking, and I want this company to go down that path.
Okay, well, look, Steve, that's been really great talking to you and getting a rundown of where things are at. It's a really exciting time, obviously, for the company and the various projects, bringing these really important resources online. So thank you very much for speaking with Assay TV.
Appreciate that anytime, and we'll talk to you sometime, maybe at the end of the summer, give you an update, let you know how all this exploration is working out, and the development of the companies.